then you've got to track it down through palpation, which muscle is it then? Or, if you want to try to localize it better, then whip out your manual muscle test book and find out the specific test you use for each muscle, put it in the opposite position of the specific test, and then ask for it to contract, because that would put it on stretch. Okay? One of the things that I do think that within NAIOMT, I think we forget about this and we never mention it, because we're trying to teach you a screen to get to where you're going as quickly as possible. But as a part of your more detailed biomechanical examination, you need to know what the strength of muscles are around the joints that you're examining. So you should remember your manual muscle tests, because if when you are doing the gross screen that we do, it doesn't create pain, they don't have fatiguing weakness, because they can hold it for 10 seconds, but you realize this is not very strong. If I was grading this gross movement of external rotation of the shoulder, I would grade it as a 3+ out of 5. Well, then the next step would be to say, okay, well, is it the supraspinatus, or is it the infraspinatus, or is it the teres minor? So is there a specific manual muscle test position for each one of those 3 muscles? If the answer is yes, then test each one separately to see which muscle is it that is incredibly weak. It might be all of them, fine. But at least then you know, because my own clinical experience is that when you have one muscle of a group, of a force couple or a group that are all working together, for example, the external rotators of the hip, okay? If only one of those muscles is weak and the rest of them aren't that bad, then the rest of them will take over, and that other muscle will never recover if you don't isolate it and exercise it. And see, when I was in physical therapy school back in the late 70s, this was most of my teachers, and I went to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and even today, that when I was there, it was the emphasis was neuro. You can imagine my frustration. Did I tell you that I was voted the student most likely to leave the profession by the faculty?
That's funny.
That's hilarious.
No, because when I went to PT school, I went there because I wanted to do sports medicine. And sports medicine was in its infancy. I mean, it had barely been born. But that's what I wanted to do, because I went to a health careers fair when I was a junior in high school, and the athletic trainer for the Orioles baseball team, because I grew up in Maryland, was there, and he was a PT athletic trainer, which was very rare in those days, and he was talking about physical therapy and how he worked with the Baltimore Orioles, and I went, I want to be you. That's what I want to do. So, and why I chose North Carolina, I have no idea. Go away from home. I didn't want to be too, the University of Maryland was 30 miles from my house. I didn't want to be that close. So anyway, so I did not enjoy PT school, because they were fighting me. First of all, I was a varsity athlete, so they thought that was awful, because when I was in PT school, I would miss class and the rule at the university was that if you're on a varsity team, then they can't penalize you for missing class. They have to allow you to make it up. So they just thought that was terrible, that I would choose to do a sport over physical therapy. Huh, there was another gal who was a varsity cheerleader, so they didn't like either of us because we did that. And then I started complaining because all my